Thank you. I'm the other side of the picture. I'm not a big city, I'm a small city. And I just want to talk a little bit about how a small city puts together a bike infrastructure and what the motivation is for a small city to do this and to benefit from it. Keene, New Hampshire is a little city. We have 23,000 people. We're in the Northeast. We're in southwest New Hampshire. We're in the center of New England. There are no other urban areas within 50 miles of us in any direction. We're fairly isolated. We have 3 colleges in the city. We have a long history of a mill town. Everybody here knows what mill towns are like. Mill towns are something of the past. They grew up, the city grew up for 100 years relying on our woolen mills and our railroads. We were a railroading center for the Boston Main Railroad that had its workshops in Keene, and we really developed around the railroads and the mill. They're gone. The mill closed in 1953. The last passenger train was 1958. The last freight train was 1983. Once the freight trains left, the railroad tore up the tracks, removed the bridges, turned the rail bed back over to the state of New Hampshire, which owned them originally, and basically left us with a lot of vacant land, particularly in the heart of the city. The rail had grown up right in the center of town. All of a sudden, the center of town was vacant. There was nothing there. We had to reinvent ourselves. We had to take what few assets we had at that point and try to create a new community, a different community than what we had had in the past. One of the assets that we had was we had these rail beds. No rails anymore, there were no trains anymore, the trains were not coming back. So we had to look at those and what can we do with them? There were a lot of developers around that thought they were a great asset and that they wanted to develop them, that they wanted to build on them. They had all this vacant land. We looked at them as a transportation network. They were right through the heart of the city. They were straight, which is something that most of our streets were not. They went to areas that needed to be redeveloped. So we began to look at them as an alternative transportation network. It became clear that the future of our community, the future of the small New England mill town, really had a lot to do with what we decided to do, how we decided to reutilize the rails. One of the interesting things about Keene, because it's a small community, 74% of the workforce actually lives in Keene. Many of them that mean travel time, 15 minutes to get to work. That I'm sure that there are a lot of communities that are very envious. They look at that, 15 minutes to get to work. It takes 15 minutes just to get on the interstate before you drive 2 hours to get to work in a lot of communities. I lived in DC for 3 years. It was 4 hours to get to work when I lived down here. This gave us an opportunity to create an alternative transportation network that people could use. People could use to get to work. People could use to shop. People could use to get to the doctors. So we began to look at this to figure out what we could do. We got help from a lot of sources. We were looking for federal grants. We raised money. We set up an organization called Pathways for Keene. They went out and raised $500,000 over a 10-year period to apply to the trail system. We also set up an organization which is actually directly through the city. Pathways for Keene is semi-independent. I don't appoint the members, but I do appoint the members for the Bicycle and Pedestrian Path Committee to develop a plan. What are we going to do? How are we going to make this work? It has tremendous economic significance. The first section that we built, the very first section we did was into the older part of the community, into the part of the community which was less economically advanced, where the population tended to be poorer, where the population tended to be more challenged. We built the section into those neighborhoods, and we connected it with the hospital. We connected it. 90% of the doctors in our community are in one way or another associated with the hospital and have offices adjacent to the hospital, so we connected it to the doctor's offices. The next section we built, we connected it to the shopping. We connected it to a couple of malls that existed in Keene. We connected it to those areas that people were most likely to travel to. If you look at the green section on here, that's what we did first. The green section that actually goes to the east, goes down toward Tifanny. That goes into the older section of the community. That's probably the most heavily used section of the trail system that currently exists. It's the older section. When the trains ran through here, that was the industrial section. That's where people who work for the railroads live. Now it's a section of community that people can get around. There are alternatives for them. There are ways for them to get to those places where they most want to be, their jobs, their shopping, their medical appointments. From there, we next began, the red section is really our streets that we've created shared break lines. Many of the things that your last speaker was just talking about are things that we have implemented, that we are working. We've adopted a complete streets policy. We are using that as a mechanism to reinvigorate older sections, older streets, areas of the city that it isn't practical, they're too narrow, that they don't lend themselves to creating new bike lanes, but they do lend themselves to creating shared bike lanes, areas that in fact are good for people to travel on. These pictures show some of the shared bike lanes. We created bike boxes in the downtown area, so people that are going into more heavily traveled areas have safe places where they can stop at intersections. We require all new businesses to have bike racks, that older businesses that haven't had bike racks are now putting them in because they've suddenly discovered those businesses with bike racks do far more business, that they actually have a significant economic impact on the community. The other things that we've learned through this, we're like a lot of communities. We have workforce development issues. We have a workforce that is getting older, the people are retiring, that it is one of the things we need to do is attract a new, younger workforce to fill those jobs that are going vacant. Well, interesting enough, biking appeals to younger people. As somebody that's kind of aging out, I clearly recognize that the 25-year-olds are much more interested in biking than the 75-year-olds are, although we do have a number of older people that bike very actively. But it's a way to generate outdoor recreation. It's a way to generate interest in a younger workforce in coming to the community. It's been amazing the number of people that are younger people that have come to the community and love the idea that they can bike to work, that they actually don't have to get into a car and drive, that they actually can just bike to work, that it takes them 10, 15 minutes to get there, and they're all set. The community made a lot of decisions. We have a bypass system, and the bypass system encircles the city. Much of the business in the city is inside the bypass system. The bypass system, though, blocks travel, particularly by bicyclists, by pedestrians, outside. Once you get outside the bypass system, you can go 30, 35 miles without any hindrance. So we went out and raised some money. Pathways for Keene, private fundraising, raised $40,000. We got a federal earmark of $1.2 million. We got some businesses in town to donate some money, and we built a bridge. It was designed to look like a railroad bridge because it was in the old railroad right away. And so we built this bridge. And that took people to the north and to the west of Keene. It also took people to some other shopping areas that they hadn't been able to get to. We did more than that. Oops. We did more than that. The state came forward and wanted to upgrade the bypass system. We weren't real thrilled about it, and we actually ended up, there was some litigation with the south of Keene with the city. The state came through. South Bridge has now been built. That was what we wanted as the alternative to the bypass system. We much prefer this as a transportation alternative to increasing highway traffic. It has created a sense of community. It has created a sense that we have probably 80 or 90 miles of trail system within the region that now can be accessed. This is all enables us to sell our community. It is a major selling point for the community. We have 3 colleges in the city: Keene State College, Antioch, and River Valley Community College. They have adopted the parts of the trail system. They are building their own set of amenities near the trail system. And Keene State College has just been designated, I think they received a silver designation as a bicycle university in the United States. Why build it? We build it because people provide transportation alternatives. We built it because it's safe. We built it because it provides access for people who have, in some of the less economically viable parts of the city. It provides access for shopping. It provides access for education. It provides access for medical care. It provides access to the center of the city. One of the goals that we had set for ourselves a number of years ago is to make us the healthiest community in the United States by the year 2020. A holistic approach. It was an approach that dealt with education, it dealt with jobs, it dealt with physical health, smoking. There were a whole variety of criteria, but being able to access the bike system, being able to walk, being able to bike, being a tremendous increase in the quality of life for a lot of underprivileged people within our community. So the bike system really has provided tremendous opportunity in Keene. We folded it into our community goals, our master plan. In 2011, we adopted the complete streets. in 2015, we adopted a design guide that you just read about. It was your design guide, basically. And we are currently in the process of revising our bicycle pedestrian master plan for the community. That the Bicycle Pedestrian Path Advisory Committee is working within the community to upgrade that master plan so that it reflects where we're going in the future. We've already created a system, and we're expanding that system. Last year I appointed a committee that is redesigning our downtown to make it more bike friendly. Many of the issues you just heard about in urban areas where biking is not always safe, we're addressing, we're dealing with, we're finding solutions for. Finally, this is a strategy that a small community, any small community can adopt. It provides the access to services, to facilities, to conveniences. It's a way to utilize the assets that a small community has and develop it. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to Tifanny Mannion. Tifanny is the bicycle mayor for the city of Keene. Bicycle Mayor is an international program that she's the first one in the United States that has taken this title. I would just finish up by saying, and Tiffany's going to talk about some of these, but a number, the community has bought into this. There are innumerable groups within the community now that are working on making this a bicycle-friendly community and expanding its utilization. Tiffany.
Thank you, Mary Lane. My name is Tifanny Mannion. Was a centerfold in Rails to Trails magazine. Highlights. I like to remind my kids in moments when they're annoying me. Yeah. So I'm bicycle mayor of Keene, first bicycle mayor in the United States. I started a bicycle blog about 2 years ago when I had a little bit too much wine in Amsterdam with my niece, and since that time I've ridden about 6,000 miles in 8 different countries. Of those miles, about 4,500 are commuting, so I'm a bicycle commuter, right? The rest I just go off and explore. This is CycleSpace, recently renamed Bikes by CycleSpace. It's an organization founded in Amsterdam in 2015 asking the simple question, where can the bicycle take us? Located in the heart of two-wheel travel, Bikes has an ambitious goal of having 50% of all global city travel done by bicycle by the year 2030. The inspiring goal grew from a country approximately the size of Maryland, with 22,000 miles of bike paths, and where 27% of all transportation is done by bicycle. The Bicycle Mayor program is one of the leading initiatives from Bikes, and was created to position and network cycling leaders from around the globe, people who are committed to promoting active participation in the creation of a future with happier, healthier cycling citizens. The beauty of the program is that it puts a face to cycling in your communities. It humanizes cycling. Mayors are currently working and have been appointed in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, Mexico City, Mexico, Sao Paulo, Brazil, Baroda, India, Sydney, Australia, Amsterdam in the Netherlands, and also Beirut, Lebanon is our newest one. Canada is getting 8 bicycle mayors soon, so sign up today. We're connected globally using several different online platforms like WhatsApp, Bicycle Mayor newsletter, Bicycle Mayor website, and we're able to connect and solve problems on a global scale and intimately bring them into our communities. The Bicycle Mayor of India, for example, got a whole bunch of a fleet of bikes for girls who could not go to school because they could not walk to school. It was too far. The Mexico City Bicycle Mayor used bicycles as a primary form of relief efforts after the earthquake in Mexico City. Cars couldn't get in, bikes could. And he got a whole fleet of people to come in and make that happen. because of Bell Cycle, I was asked to test a helmet cover for a friend of mine in Sydney, Australia. She became the bicycle mayor of Sydney, and I thought, we need that in Keene. We need it in the US and we need it in Keene. So that was my introduction to the program, coupled with my intense love of Dutch bicycles. I contacted MASS, the Mannion Alliance for Sustainable Transportation, and they identified a list of goals in our community that were needs, solving problems that cyclists addressed. I was challenged by bikes to break that down into 3. So I had to boil that down into 3. My list of 3 is connections, so I'm working really hard over my 2-year term connecting our region of riders. From whether you're a gravel grinder or a road warrior, you ride for transportation, you ride to get to school, I don't care, I love you. And I want to make your ride easier. So in addition to that, creation, I'm creating a lot of opportunities to get everybody together who rides with initiatives and programming such as bike kitchens, highlighting bike shares. Keene has a great green bikes program, so you can rent a bike for free with a library card in Keene. It services a student population and people that don't have a bike, they're visiting in town, they can just go downtown with a library card that they take from whoever they're staying with and go ride. The second phase, and the other part of our component for us is education. We really need to educate a new wave of riders that are confident on the roads, and we're lacking that right now. So as an LCI, League certified instructor, I'm starting our first round of TS 101, Traffic Skills 101 safety courses for cyclists in our region, and that'll be the stepping stone to get other instructors in our region, and especially positioning those instructors with people who need to use bikes as a primary mode of transportation. So it's not all about the spandex, for me, it's about getting to work. And then you contact a bunch of local stakeholders. For me, it was Mayor Lane, it was local police departments with whom I work closely, because I record my rides and send them people that need a little help remembering the 3, 4, 5 rule that we have in Keene. Mannion Cycling Club, Pathways for Keene, you receive letters of support, submit them to Amsterdam, schedule the announcement. It sounds kind of easy. It took 6 months. For someone with my patience level, that was extraordinary. So if you're interested in innovating and thinking about answering the question of 3 goals in your community that a bicycle mayor could address, connect. You can go to the Bikes website, you can go to the Bicycle Mayor Keene website, you can ask me any questions this afternoon and into the evening. And perhaps most importantly, I think this position is the direct result of Mayor Lane and others in our community that were able to harness this innovative programming and bring it into our community with untested potential. And it is such a small corner of New Hampshire, but we're making such enormous strides in the world of cycling. It's a contagious energy from what I'm hearing from people on the streets. So I'm thrilled to represent the Bicycle Mayor movement and contribute to sustainable, intelligent solutions that begin to answer the question, where can the bicycle take us?